Okay, it says we're live. So I
Yay.
am going to start addressing all of you teachers' pets out there. You know what you need to do. You need to take your phones and start helping grow the classroom. And the way you do that is that you invite, you tag, you share, you do all these things because this is kind of like a continuation of what we discussed yesterday. And I'm really excited about that. I'm excited that we are discussing more about the emotional component of how to get better. So today is going to be something different. And let me go ahead and start the record button because I haven't done it yet. So today we're going to do something different. We're going to go straight into the class today because Robert isn't here to do the dance music. So in your mind, all of you need to start dancing because that is how we enjoy life. I mean, to me, these are really difficult times. And so people ask me, why do you do dancing before, especially if there's a serious topic, how can you do? Because it is time to dance. It's when times like this and you need to shift, what better than dancing to shift? What better to be able to pour out your emotions? So anyway, so if you were wondering why, it's because God made me a dancer. And that's it. So today we're not going to have any music. So for those of you who do not like the theme song, good for you. This is going to be a happy day for you. But for those of you who love to dance with me every time we come together, then you can still do that. So remember to go ahead and invite people. And we're going to take a little pause so that when we edit this, we'll have the music at the top and at the end. So let me just do a couple of things so that Robert can add it on to in a little bit. And here we go. Just pretend like we just finished dancing, okay? Okay. Hello, my listening and viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in to the Lillian McDermott radio show / classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, we're going to continue a little bit with the conversation that we started yesterday with Dr. Michelle Lamassa Schrader Dawson, which is now she's married to Mark Dawson. We're really excited for them. And but we're going to hone in on how Ryke Hamer, and I know I'm pronouncing Dr. Hamer, and when I learned about him in 2015, it completely changed the way I looked at the root cause of dis-ease, especially cancer. And as you know, we started the foundation, the McDermott Holistic Healing Foundation, that focuses on natural ways to heal. And what the foundation eventually would like to do, if people stop donating to other organizations and they start donating to our organization more, is we want to pay for holistic treatments so that we can release our bodies of the burdens that are trapped, so that we can learn how to release it. So in comes German New Medicine. I didn't even know it was called German New Medicine. And it's so extraordinary that many people would leave what they truly love to begin a new movement, a new way to heal the body. And so today we have Melissa Sells. She's a chiropractor who has discovered this healing modality and helps people all over the world learn a little bit more about their past traumas, their lives, and how to hone in to the root cause. Because as you know, I always say, you take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. Then if you create it, you can uncreate it. That's the beauty of it all. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Melissa Sells is here to do this, just that. Welcome, Dr. Sells, to the classroom.
Well, thank you so very much for having me. I am always so excited to share with any group, any audience, anyone, really this amazing truth about how the body functions, how the body heals, because I do believe that it's everyone's birthright to understand the language that their body speaks, and that by getting into rapport, they're able to take that 100% responsibility and see that they're not broken. Your body is not broken. You're not diseased. There's just dis-ease. There's something going on outside of your awareness. And when you bring that into your awareness, you can take control and you can allow your body to heal. So I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure that you are here. I'm very grateful to that. Okay, so let's start because you are a chiropractor. You went through the learning how to heal the body or work with the body, and then all of a sudden you decide, ooh, how did that happen? How did you go from going to school, becoming DC, and now you are focused on German New Medicine? How did that happen for you?
So I was obsessed with everything healing from the time I was 18 years old. I got a job at a chiropractic office, and I saw people, come into this world and just they would begin eating healthy, and their whole family would get well. And I was like, I have to do this. And so I went to chiropractic school and graduated in 2012, and absolutely loved everything about what I was doing. Very focused on people changing their lifestyle. So I was doing everything, health coaching, getting toxic products out of your home, learning how to, I take people on grocery tours, show them how to eat organic and to make healthy meals. And so I had a very comprehensive approach to helping people to change their lifestyle. And so that was working for me. I was loving it for many years, really. And I do still love everything about it. There just came a point where I started going off in a direction for my own personal mental health, is kind of looking at the mind, looking at mental patterns. I began meditating. And so my own personal health journey kind of took a little bit of a different direction. I started getting very interested in not just behaviors. So there, the behavioral changes of eat this, not that, do these exercises, take these supplements. It was very focused on the doing aspect. And I got more interested in the being. And so the person and their thought process and their patterns and the things that they do habitually outside of their awareness. And so I got very interested in showing people more that direction. And so my partner and I, we started working more with the mindset, and we started seeing really awesome results in our own, mostly in our relationship was where, the seed of that change began. And then it spilled out to helping other people. But then it was the beginning of 2017, and we were doing a workshop, teaching a workshop on magnesium supplementation, and I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Carolyn Dean, who wrote The Magnesium Miracle, and she mentioned the person interviewing her asked her about cancer, and she mentioned German New Medicine, and I was like, what is that? I literally had never heard of it. And I was so shocked that I hadn't, because once I saw the work, I was like, oh, my mind was blown. And I was so astonished that I just had never heard about it before. And so I spent almost an entire year studying everything I could get my hands on. This large chart behind me is like the mapping that Dr. Hamer did of the body that shows that disease is not random. It is not the result of breakdown. It is the result of deliberate, intentional biological adaptations that our bodies make in response to traumatic shocks, to things that catch us off guard. And so I dove into just learning this way of understanding the body. And through it, I've been able to help myself. First and foremost, that this is a very individual and subjective way of understanding, why does my body develop acne or a urinary tract infection? Why am I losing hair? Why do I have this mole? And you just start to see, oh, this is all teaching me about myself. And so I got so interested in bringing this connection together and helping as many people as I can to share this information, so that people no longer have to fear disease, and they no longer have to, look at it as something, oh, I did something wrong and now I'm being punished. Because I started seeing that's, I would even have that mentality of, oh, I ate a little too much sugar, and that damaged my immune system. And now I caught a bug. That was my thinking. So it was kind of this, I was being punished for, for eating sugar. And now with the GNM and the 5 biological laws, I see all of that in a completely different light. And it's about freedom, really. It's about having this freedom and this confidence and this understanding in your body.
Yeah, and I said this yesterday, and I really do, because Dr. Michelle, she talked a little bit about Dr. Hamer and how he lost his son, and this brought this, but he did a lot of research with MRIs and looking at the brain and looking at what's happening in the body, and he was an oncologist, right? Was he an oncologist or what
He
kind
did
of a
work
doctor?
in oncology.
Yes. And so he was able to focus. But when I hear you say, well, why is my hair falling out? Why do I have acne? It's more than just cancer. It seems like it's now, let's dive in. Let's be our own MD. Let's be our own medical detective, and why some things are happening. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the work with Dr. Lorraine Day. She always says doctors don't know how to cure people. They say they only know how to prescribe. And many of the doctors that come on and that come on into the classroom say, we just don't know. We just know how to prescribe. It takes some extra care, attention to nutrition and the mind and the gut and all these things. And that gives them a better education that they even knew was out there. And so with Dr. Hamer, let's talk a little bit about why he dove into this kind of research.
Yeah, and I think it was born out of his personal experience, because he was very a traditional medical doctor in every regard until the tragedy of losing his 17-year-old son. And, after he lost his son and he developed testicular cancer, he knew that there had to be some type of connection. Mm-hmm. And so he started investigating and interviewing. So he worked in an oncology unit. And so he was able to talk with cancer patients. And he found, without exception, that every person experienced some type of shocking trauma, something that caught them off guard. But beyond that, he noticed specific patterns. So why, it's not just stress in general, because, people have some idea of, oh, stress isn't good for the body, and that can, cause or create conditions mm-hmm. in the body that are more conducive to disease. But he took it further, which is what makes his work so profound and so unique, is he saw why specifically testicular cancer or thyroid cancer or breast cancer. And he learned by observing people mm-hmm. and talking with them, and then eventually looking at the brain, he found that depending on the content of the conflict, depending on what specifically happened to you, did you have a loss? Did you have a brutal separation where, someone was taken from you? Did you feel attacked? Were you devaluing yourself? And so all of these different, very, they're nuanced perspectives, nuanced experiences that humans can have, that depending on the content of the shock, the thing that catches you off guard, different biological programs will activate depending on the unique individual. And so that is just another thing that makes this work. He's taken it further than anyone else who, in my opinion, who has studied mind body. He's taken it to, as far as it can go at this point.
Yeah. And so when you say different programs get triggered, let's talk about these programs, because from the moment we're born, we're being programmed. We make up stuff about ourselves. And I said this yesterday, I'm going to say it again. And by the way, all of you know, Robert is not with us right now. He normally types in, write your questions down. You're welcome to type in a Q, write your questions down, and we will ask Dr. Sal when the time is appropriate. So please feel free, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you are part of this classroom. So I hope you've taken the front row seat and you're taking lots of notes. So, I mentioned this yesterday when Bruce Lipton was in my classroom in 2013, and he said that, talk about the mind being so powerful. He said that normally they say that 90% of all disease has to do with stress, and not just stress, but it has to do with past traumas. But off the record, the majority, because this is an allopathic study that they did, was 89% of all ERs, they couldn't find a physical connection. And so, so that is very close to what the allopathic community says, right? But what many of the doctors, including Dr. Bruce Lipton, has said that 99% of all disease has to do with an emotional component. So as a certified life coach, I'll say something to that effect to people who are not open to hear this new truth, right? And they get offended that somehow I'm saying that what you're going through is psychosomatic, it's all in your head, and that is not what is intended. It is like heal the emotion, heal the root cause, and your body will stop protecting you. So let's talk a little bit about that, and how this program, these different programs that get exacerbated to the point where it forms a symptom that goes to a diagnosis.
Yeah. So the body, it has this deep wisdom, generations upon generations. Like your body is ancient. Your body has ancient wisdom programmed within it. So every being that came before you in your ancestral line learned things about how to survive in this unpredictable world. And so your body has all of these innate adaptive programs. And so when you're just going around, your senses are picking up on everything, things that you could be thinking about what you're having for lunch or what you're having for dinner or what you're doing this weekend, but your body is sensing. It is picking up on, every rustle in the bush, every sound from every direction. And even, outside of your conscious awareness, your body is picking up on potential dangers. Because for an organism, it is so important that as soon as possible if there is a threat in your environment. Mm-hmm. And so the moment that your nervous system perceives a threat in your environment, if it is sufficiently catches you off guard, if it is sufficiently shocking, and if you can't handle it in the moment, your body, it steps in to help you. And so depending again on the content, on the specific of the situation, let's say you're on a hike and you're just enjoying the nature, and all of a sudden your nervous system detects there's a mountain lion, and you're like, your body notices it even before your conscious mind notices it. Your body will set off a biological program before it's even come to your conscious awareness. And so that's where, again, it's biological, not psychological. It's programmed deep within you. And so based on the split second, how your nervous system perceives this danger, so let's go with the mountain lion. That could be a death fright. If I don't get out of here, if I don't get away from this, I could literally die. And so your body will set off this biological program. And so in this case, it could be a death fright conflict that triggers in the brainstem that the body needs to proliferate. So increase the number of tissue cells in the lungs. And the purpose of that, it's not erroneous. The body isn't just, randomly making more cells, which is kind of the idea that we have about cancer, is just the body's broken and these cells are going crazy, but it's actually orchestrated perfectly from the brain in response to the shocking trauma that you experienced. And so your body starts proliferating additional lung alveoli. And the purpose of that is so every breath you can absorb more oxygen into your body so that you can get away from the mountain lion. And so the body it's got this program. And then the moment that you resolve the conflict, you run away, it runs away, it's no longer a threat. You can relax, that's why relaxation. Mm-hmm. And like you said at the beginning with dancing, anything that triggers and signals your body like, oh, I'm okay now, I'm safe. Like when you're not feeling safe, you're not dancing. when you're feeling safe and comfortable, that's why, so many things can be an entry into resolution by calming your nervous system and letting all the parts of your body know the danger is gone. And once the danger is gone, your body, those cells that were proliferated during the conflict, your body breaks them down naturally using bacteria. And so that's another part of these 5 biological laws that Dr. Hamer discovered, is that bacteria, they are not causative agents. There is no pathogen, that bacteria, viruses, things that, modern medicine says this is what causes illness. This is what causes tuberculosis. This is what causes an infection. that is, it's a zoomed in. They're not seeing the full context of the biological program. So you look and say, oh, there's bacteria here and the person's coughing. Bacteria must be causing the cough. But if you zoom out and you look at the person's entire experience, you will see they had a shocking trauma. Their body went into adaptation. They resolved the trauma, and now the body is in this healing restoration phase, and the bacteria are workers. They're little microsurgeons that can break down tissue. And so when you see this big picture, you're able to see there's no mistake here. There's no problem here. The body's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is help you survive.
Isn't the body amazing? It is, I could just, just shout it out from the mountaintop that, we have been trained, talk about being programmed. We have it all wrong. Traditional medicine has it all wrong. It takes away your power and says, don't trust your intuition. And, so when I hear you say these things, I get really excited because every single doctor that comes into the classroom confirms it and confirms. One of the first time that I really kind of started getting it was Dr. Emran Mayer. I don't know if you know who he is, but he wrote the book, The Gut Mind Solution. And he said something that just has always stuck with me. And I don't know if I made it up. Maybe I heard it incorrectly. But he said that if the brain and the gut are constantly communicating with one another, and if the brain knows that you need to resolve something, and the gut knows that, or the gut knows that, or the body, let's just say the body or the gut knows that you need to resolve something, and the brain goes, well, don't want to do it because it might be painful. It's going to be painful. And the body's saying, no, you really need to resolve this. And the mind is saying, no, we're not ready. Let's hide it. Let's suppress it. And let's act like nothing happened. Well, the body knows something needs to happen, right? And so it says, well, I know it's going to be painful, so let's create pain so that you're dealing with pain. It kind of like honors the emotion that needs to go there, or the feeling that needs to go there. I don't know if this is too primitive of an explanation, but that's what I took away from that. And maybe I'm going to get it all wrong, but the body knows that something needs to happen, and it sends out their workers. And depending on how we eat and how we sleep and how we stress and all those things, that's how the body's going to respond. Is that correct?
There's a little bit of nuance again within GNM, because a lot of different schools of thought have taken the mind-body connection and have come up with really wonderful explanations. But when you look further into GNM, there's a little more nuance to say the appearance of pain. So physical pain comes after conflict resolution. And so when your body has musculoskeletal pain, it is because you've resolved a conflict related to self-devaluation. And so it's very interesting how your body, when you are devaluing yourself, when you're not feeling good enough, when you're not feeling strong enough, when you're not feeling smart enough, you're just not feeling enough. You've got this self-worth conflict. Your body goes through this process of decomposing and degenerating the musculoskeletal tissues.
Interesting.
And it's very specific to, so if you are a right-handed woman and you are having a relationship self-devaluation where you're feeling like a bad wife, a bad partner, you can develop issues with your shoulder. Or if you're feeling like a bad mother, that will be the left side. So Dr. Hamer, he's discovered so many interesting aspects of the body that can help you to figure out what specifically you're dealing with. And once that conflict is resolved, let's say you have a fight with your spouse and you're feeling really bad, and you caused it, you kind of you propagated the whole fight, and you're feeling bad and you're feeling guilty, but then you resolve it with your partner, you discuss it, and then the next day you wake up and you have shoulder pain out of nowhere. And so this is the kind of thing where people think, oh, I must have just slept wrong. Yeah. But if you don't know, if there wasn't a specific injury, you want to dig a little deeper and see if you can find that psychobiological root cause.
I love it. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of times that there are 5 biological laws.
Yes.
So let's quickly go through these 5. Can we quickly go through the 5 biological laws? laws, and then I want to go into the kind of like symptom, condition, and understanding a little bit more.
Yes, certainly. So the first biological law is the connection between the psyche, brain, and organ. And so the psyche, brain, organ, it's really, they're not separate parts. It's all one thing. We just talk about them separately. And so again, the psyche, this is the, the sensing apparatus that is picking up on potential threats and dangers in your environment. And so the moment that you have a conflict shock, and so a conflict shock is different than stress. And so stress, can be things that you're going to have to, go pick someone up from soccer and grab food for dinner. You know that these things are going to happen. A conflict shock specifically is something that catches you off guard, something that you were not prepared for. And all of a sudden, your nervous system was like, whoa, I wasn't ready for this. And so that's what initiates a biological program. And so it's very important to realize that it's not just stress in general. It's a very specific moment in time where you're caught off guard, and your body, again, it takes this snapshot and it says, it knows exactly what tissues need to be adapted to help you survive, to get through whatever the situation is. Mm-hmm. So it affects you at the level of the psyche. So that's your perception of the thing that happened. The brain. Now the brain, there are very specific impacts that can be measured by CT scan. And so your brain, different areas of your brain control different parts of your body. And so depending on, again, the type of conflict you experience will determine where in the brain is impacted. And then at the same time, there are adaptations that take place on the organ level. And so it's psyche, brain, organ. There's a conflict, it affects you, there's a measurable impact in the brain, and there are adaptations taking place on the tissue level. So that's the first biological law.
Number two.
And the second biological law is a law of two phases. And so this is this understanding that all dis-ease conditions, all adaptations take place in two phases. So typically we're in our normal day-night rhythm, normal homeostasis, where your body is a little more sympathetic active during the day. And then at night, parasympathetic, that's that rest and digest. Conflict, you're a little more fight or flight during the day, and then rest and digest at night. Now, the moment that you have this shocking conflict and you're caught off guard, your body enters a state of heightened sympathetic activity. So you're on alert. And when you are on alert, there are ways that you can know if your hands are cold, if you are having trouble falling asleep, or if you're falling asleep and then waking up and you're wide awake in the middle of the night. Your body keeps you awake because it's saying, hey, you have a conflict you need to resolve. Like you were saying earlier, your body is letting you know now's the time. You need to look at this situation and you need to resolve it. And so there are signals that you can start to become sensitive to know I'm in conflict right now. My hands are cold. I'm not very hungry. I'm feeling like my blood pressure is up. I'm feeling just really, the typical stressed state. And so that will happen. You will be in that state until you resolve the conflict. And the conflict resolution can be the situation changes. It could be a forgiveness on your part, some type of deliberate, intentional mental shift that you're like, I need to let this go. And so you kind of go through that process. Someone could, you could get new information that makes the conflict obsolete. So there's a lot of different things that can turn the corner. But whatever it is, it causes you to go from stress, fight or flight, I'm worried about this thing, to okay, it's probably going to be okay. And so once you resolve the conflict, the adaptation that's taking place shifts, and you go from either tissue buildup or tissue breakdown to tissue repair. And so that's the second phase of healing. And so this is when you feel sick. So this is one of the most important things to understand from the G&M perspective, is typically when you feel sick, when you are feverish and you are exhausted and inflamed and feeling so yucky, you have a headache, that is actually when you are healing. Your body is recovering from the fight or flight, the heightened sympathetic state you were in, and the adaptations that took place. Now your body's healing. And so this is one of the biggest things in my coaching that I help people to do, is to understand when you have the headache, when you are feeling crappy, a lot of times we can go into a new conflict because we're like, I'm such a piece of crap. I can't get anything done. What's wrong with me? Why am I sick again? By changing what you say to yourself during this time and how you respond to symptoms can change everything.
Mm.
part of this second half of healing is halfway through, there is something called the epileptoid crisis. There's this healing crisis, this big squeeze where your body goes through a surge of sympathetic activity, and it's to squeeze out edema, because the healing phase, there's always swelling. There's swelling on the brain and there's swelling on the organ. And so that's why understanding this, that there's going to be some type of, big migraine attack. In some cases, it can be something like a heart attack, even a stroke, a seizure, is part of this healing process. So once again, typically when someone has a big health event, we say, oh, there's something wrong with you. We need to do something to fix you. And yes, there are medical interventions that can be very helpful for you to survive that phase. But in and of itself, it's not the sign that something is wrong. It's actually a sign that your body is going through this intense healing process. And then at the end of that second phase, your body restores and repairs the rest of the tissue and gets you back to homeostasis. So that's the second law.
Well, but depending on how healthy you are, your body will respond accordingly, because, a lot of people don't survive a heart attack. If that's the healing process of, so it's really important that we start looking at how our body responds to this by eating well, getting enough sleep and all that, right? I mean, is that
Yes, the healthier you are, so the more, good nutrition that you have in your system, and good sleep, that your body will be better able to handle those intense healing situations. So yes, there are so many factors that go into how intense, the more intense the conflict and the longer the conflict lasted, that determines how intense the healing phase is and how long it's going to last.
Yeah, it's a great warning to have. So if you're experiencing, the benefits of resolving conflict resolution, just know that to give yourself some love and space there, because that I hear a lot of people, I just finished eating really, really good. I started a new routine, and all of a sudden they go jogging and they drop dead. And so we need to make sure that our bodies can handle this too. So, okay. So number 3, the third biological law.
So the third biological law, it's this compass, it's this way of understanding why certain tissues do certain things. So, the skin on my face is different from what my glands are made out of, which is different from what other tissues are made out of. And so Dr. Hamer, he mapped out, based on our embryologic germ layers. So we go back to embryology and the very basic substance from which all of our tissues were developed. And so different tissues behave in different ways. And so some tissues respond during the conflict. Their response is to create more tissue. So that was the example I gave with the lungs and the alveoli. There's an increase, a proliferation of cells. And so that happens during the conflict activity with brainstem controlled tissues. Also, the cerebellar controlled tissues respond with an increase in tissue cells. Then during the healing phase, the body breaks those down using the mycobacteria. Now, there are other tissues that respond during the conflict active phase with tissue loss, like the example I gave with the musculoskeletal system. Also with the epidermis, so the skin, there's cell loss when you're in conflict. And then once you resolve the conflict, the body repairs the tissue. So an example of this would be like a skin rash. And so a skin rash comes from some type of separation conflict. And so this is where you are strongly missing contact with someone. A great example of this would be, like a baby, a very young child who goes off to a daycare, and then they can develop like eczema in the crooks of their arms and the backs of their knees. And if you think about it, this is where when a little baby holds on to you, like a little koala, they've got their elbows and the backs of their knees are in contact with you when you're holding them.
Wow.
And so when they are feeling separated from their loved one, they can have this separation conflict where during the active feelings of separation, there's tissue loss. There's also numbing of the area. There's also memory loss that goes along with it, because it's kind of like the mama cat who loses her kittens forgets about it. And it's biologically advantageous, because otherwise it would be emotionally, too hard to deal with that separation.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the baby is reunited, when they resolve the conflict, they have this itchy, inflamed, red rash on the insides of their elbows and the backs of their knees. And that is a sign that they have resolved the separation conflict. And so it's very easy to see how a child going back and forth to date, they may be having these cycles, and we're like, oh, we thought we had it under control, but it keeps coming back, it's because there's this element that's missing, which is the psychobiological component, this biological conflict that this child is experiencing. Also, I guess now is a really great time to say that the conflicts are so unique to the individual. And so it has everything to do with their subjective experience. So like not every baby that goes to daycare develops eczema or develops rashes because of a separation conflict. And so that's where, this work really takes into account the individuality of each and every person. And so it's not one size fits all. It's not, oh, we all experience things differently. And so that's why, I would read your specific conflicts, your specific symptoms, and work backwards from there to figure out what is it about your experience that is bringing forth these adaptations.
Yeah. And okay, so when I see somebody that has eczema, and I always think, okay, do they have wheat allergies? Do they have, dairy allergies? Do they have? So that's what I would look at. I mean, I'm not a clinician or anything to that effect, but with enough, with working in the medical industry and doing these classes for a long time, I've learned from some great teachers too, that there are other things. So at what point do we look at the food that we're eating as well as maybe a conflict?
So from the GNM perspective, something like an allergy, something like gluten or dairy being a causative agent of something like eczema, we really would have to look at what was the child or what was the individual going through at the time they first developed this allergy. Because often people are eating wheat, they're eating dairy, they're eating everything normally up until a point. It's like, okay, why when I turned 38, I stopped being able to digest dairy? And like, that's really strange. And so what I would look at is the conflicts, what was going on, because once again, your body, the moment that you have these conflicts, your body takes a snapshot of everything going on in your environment, including the food that's in your system or the foods that you're eating. And so the association between the separation conflict and the food item, it basically gets flagged by the nervous system and reminds the body of the separation conflict. And so people have had great success by detaching the conflict from the food. So when they get to the root cause conflict and they say, oh, you know what, I was going through this traumatic experience at that time. This is why this food has been flagged by my nervous system. And so that by resolving the conflict, and then by, you have to retrain your nervous system because, your body is biologically reacting to this food. And so, if a person though is they really want to be able to incorporate this food back into their life, there's definitely hope for that by working to get to the root cause, resolving that root cause conflict, and resolving the track and trigger around the food.
Okay. Wow. And it would be good for you to give a little quick example of each phase. So like what it would look like. That was a really good visual for me to see when do you apply one or the other, or if do they all fall into place? Okay. So number 4, let's,
Number 4, this is the ontogenetic system of microbes. And so this is Dr. Hamer. He found that bacteria and viruses and fungus are not causative agents. There is no external pathogen. Our bodies developed alongside with all of these microorganisms, and they are there to serve us and to help us. And that when we see a microbe at a location of healing, that microbe did not cause the problem. That's like blaming the fire truck, the firefighters for the fire. They are there for a reason. They're doing a job. They are serving the body either in tissue restoration of the tissue that was lost during the conflict active phase, or tissue decomposition. So just like you see fungus on dead trees in the forest, breaking it down, that's what fungus does in our body. So something like Candida, it is serving a purpose. It's not there just taking over arbitrarily because there's something wrong with you. It's there because there is tissue that needs to be broken down, and it's there serving its purpose. And so that's the 4th biological law.
Interesting how viruses get such a bum rap, and reality is that it's our reaction in our body that we need to really look at. Okay, so number 5, let's go ahead and get to number 5 before we move on.
Number 5 is kind of like the ribbon on everything. This is the knowing that the quintessence, this is what Dr. Hamer calls it. It is the knowing that nothing is random. There's nothing that's breaking down. There is a beautiful harmony to everything that's happening within the body. Everything is purposeful. Every adaptation, every rash, every pimple, everything that shows up on your body, there is a reason that it's happening, and it's not random, and it's not due to breakdown. It is due to very detailed, specific adaptations your body is going through in response to your subjective experience of the world.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So before we move on, because I know that you guys have some questions. I see them already. So please hold tight. But real quick, I just want you to know that this is where we take 100% responsibility for our life. As you know, my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. Responsibility is an unbelievable way to live, an unbelievable word that has such a bum rap. So it's time to take ownership of our life. And by the way, there is a page on my website at whenyounneedafriend.com that focuses on responsibility and taking ownership, 100% ownership for your life. There's 4 little questions, so check them out. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. As you know, the algorithms for social media have been garbling up the classroom. So I want all of you, just in case, we were very lucky to have this platform by which you get to be in the classroom as well. So just in case that ever changes, make sure that you have subscribed to whenyounneedafriend.com. That way you'll know where you can find the classroom without skipping a beat. And so go to whenyounneedafriend.com, subscribe. And then while you're there, please like me and follow me. Share this information with all the people that you love and people that you feel that need to take responsibility for their life as well. So while you're there, make sure that you scroll to my sponsors page or my Shop Now bag. That is how our sponsors help out the classroom, and sponsors like Keep Me Safe Organics, which by the way, they're going to be on tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. So make sure that you come back Eastern time at 8 o'clock to be a part of the classroom, because you may not get notification. That's what's happening. So make sure you check out Keep Me Safe Organics, beauty products, all natural, non-synthetic. It's everything from head to toe that I wear, that I use on my skin. First Alternative Care, which is telemedicine for the entire household. That's medical as well as dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling. But it's unlimited medical and dermatology for $19.99 for the entire household. So if I'm not going to go into too much of that, but you know that it's there. Go check it out. The pharmacy in Merritt Island, an incredible group of people. So if you live in the Florida area and you're in this area, it's worth going to them, because they will take your medications, the oral pills, and put them in compounds and more, and for your dogs as well. First, Live Longer Medical, making you as beautiful on the inside out. And then of course we have our affiliate programs like Ground Therapy, which it's wonderful to be grounded in your house. So check out those products. Brain Tap, reformatting the brain, which is something that Dr. Sell would love if she hasn't heard of it. First Alternative Therapy, which is Avazia. It's how I've helped manage pain after a car accident. Microcurrent technology. So many different ways to support our sponsors. Make sure that you support them as they are supporting the classroom. And last but not least, you. And by the way, some of you are sending donations to the classroom. I am so grateful to you. And so figure out ways that you can be a part of this classroom. You can donate your time, your talent, or your treasure. Now, today we are talking to Dr. Melissa Sell, and we're talking about German New Medicine. If you like what she's saying and you'd like to learn more, you can go to drmelissasell.com. And so she's going to be doing an event on October 17th that you may want to learn. We'll talk about that later. But right now, I really appreciate you, Dr. Sell, for sharing your wisdom. Oh my gosh, you really have taken it in, and it's almost like it's a part of you. And so when I when I heard about Dr. Hamer, I thought, he was only talking about cancer. But now I see that there's more. They've taken his research and now they have kind of like, okay, well, this is a starting point to you had mentioned earlier in the broadcast about hair falling out. So what does it mean when you have hair falling out?
Yeah, and this is all Dr. Hamer's original work. And so he discovered that loss of hair is due to a separation conflict, just because also like with the epidermis and the skin, it's also a separation conflict, but there's going to be some type of element. So if a person is, loses hair on a certain area of their head, it's like, oh, what was the connection there? Maybe they lost a grandmother who would stroke them or braid their hair, and that loss, that separation, the body interpreted this separation as a separation from my head. And so that the hair started to fall out. And so that's a very profound connection to figure out, okay, when did this first begin? What was happening in my life at the time when I first started losing my hair? And so that, looking back and doing that detective work of looking back in your history, when did this problem begin? What was going on in your life? Who were you around? Asking all of these questions will help you to get to, oh my goodness, I was so upset about, this loss that I had, or this situation that was going on. That's going to help you to get to what was like the felt sensation. What was the experiential relevance of this thing that was going on in your life? And you can see, oh, my body. And it's so interesting too, to understand the body in this way, because it's how your body interpreted it. Something that was huge for me was acne. And so that was something I dealt with on and off, a lot in my teen years, on and off throughout my 20s. And it was so frustrating because I thought that acne had everything to do with my diet. And I could be eating perfectly. I'm like, oh, I'm doing all the things. I'm taking all my supplements. I'm doing all the perfect things. And I'd have a breakout and I'd feel so mystified. I'd be like, I thought I was doing everything right. And so I would get a little frustrated about it until I learned Dr. Hamer's work that a acne breakout, it has to do not with diet primarily, but it has to do with feeling attacked or feeling soiled. And so when I would feel attacked or feel soiled, a couple examples of that is I thought that every time I ate out at a restaurant where they use bad oils, I thought the bad oils caused me to have a breakout. And so it was really funny.
But the oils do that.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it was the oils, but aren't there tons of people who can eat out at restaurants and not have an acne breakout? It's like, well, yes. And weren't there times in my life where I could eat at a restaurant and not have an acne breakout? Well, yes. And so I realized it wasn't the oils themselves. It was my perception. I viewed them as dirty. And so as bad oils. And then when I put them in my body, I had a feeling soiled conflict, which manifested in, around my mouth, a breakout of acne. And so that was like, it was so eye-opening because again, now I can eat out at places and not have an acne reaction. It's like, well, the oils are still as bad as they've ever been, but my reaction to them is different. And therefore I don't have the same acne type response. Another thing was my dog would lick my face and I would feel, soiled from that. And so I was able to change my reaction to that. And so that has been something that has been revolutionary for me. So it's not purely just the stuff that we're putting in our bodies. It's our response. It's our perception of those things that really is making a huge difference in whether or not our bodies have a reaction.
Okay. So then I had just said that. Every time because we had some friends over and I had organic, non-GMO corn chip, and I had it and like a day or two later, I had a reaction on my skin. My skin was flawless. And then I had a reaction. I said, you see, every time I have oil. And so now I have to rethink that one.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that day where I can have it. Okay. So I know all of you that are watching, you might have a symptom right now. Go ahead and post it on there and we will get to it because Dr. Sell said that she had some time afterward with the teacher's pet corner so go ahead and ask your question. If you don't write anything on there, then we don't know that you are with us. So make your mark in the classroom by asking a question. What about the thyroid? Or the mouth or that's happening.
Okay, so thyroid is very interesting. So the thyroid gland responds to a conflict. So you being caught off guard, you experience a conflict of I'm too slow. I'm behind. I'm not fast enough. If, I've seen this in people who feel behind in life. They feel like they need to really hurry up and get married, and they need to hurry up and have kids. They need to hurry up and, like they're on this timeline in their mind, and they feel perpetually behind, or a person who's feeling behind on their bills, or they're just behind in life. When you have this intense sensation of feeling behind, your body says, I can help. And it will proliferate additional thyroid gland cells so that you can have more thyroid hormone in your body to speed you up, so that you can resolve this conflict of feeling too slow. And so that can lead to, nodules forming within the thyroid until the point that you resolve the conflict. And then the body will go through the process of breaking down. And then that's when you'll have, inflammation in the thyroid. Typically, that's when a person will go in and get diagnosed, and they'll say, oh, you have a thyroid nodule, or, oh, you have thyroid cancer. And at that point, it's not that, again, the body was in the repair mode. The body's already healing the process, but that's typically when people get diagnosed, and then they have the shock of being diagnosed with something, which can lead to a cascade of all sorts of different conflicts that come just from being told you have something wrong with you. You have the C word, and that just sends shockwaves through the person, which can lead to, a death threat conflict affecting the lungs. It can cause a self-devaluation conflict. I'm broken. There's something wrong with me, leading to issues with the bones or the lymphatic tissue. And so that's why it's so profound and so important. And that's why I'm so glad to be here sharing with people. When you have a diagnosis, when there's something going on in your body, when there's a growth, when there's a mole, when there's a lump, that does not mean that something's wrong with you. That does not mean that that you are in this horrible, because we have this image in our mind when the word cancer comes up, it's like it strikes fear into people. But from the GNM perspective, when you understand the purpose of cancer, that cancer is not random, that it grew for a specific reason based upon your personal experience, you can become free from the fear of cancer. There are situations in which you may still have some type of conventional intervention or a surgery. Let's say something is blocking, you have a colon cancer, and it's not that it's this or that. You don't have to do all or none. You're able to utilize medicine in a more resourceful, in a smarter way when you understand the biological laws.
Okay. So that was really good let's just take a snapshot there, because we have about 5 minutes left for the podcast. And for those of you who, I love you guys that are in a podcast, but you're always welcome to join us on the live, and also watch once we upload it into Facebook and YouTube and BitChute. Okay. So we're getting lots of questions now. I promise you we'll get to it, but we just need to finish up. So when we are in this diagnosis mode, because this is what we happen, the body is screaming at you. First it whispers, then it talks loud, and then it screams at us. And that's when we pay attention. We get hit by a 2x4, and we've been having this symptom all along, and we ignore it and we ignore it and we ignore it. Then we go to the doctor, and that symptom now becomes a diagnosis that, oh, you need to take this pill, or you need to do the surgery, or you need to do. But that fear right there is going to create more problems. You're saying stop the mind and say, ooh, that means that my body is repairing, right? So what else can we do to start releasing whatever conflict was there that created that symptom?
Yeah, understanding is everything. And so that's why I believe that every individual has the capacity to understand the basics of it. Even if you don't have a science background, even if some of the words at first are like, oh, I don't, just fix me. A lot of times we have this desire just for someone to fix us. And that's why it's easier to take a pill or to do a surgery than it is to understand your biology and to understand your psychology. And this approach, it really does invite you to learn about how your body works. Get very curious about understanding, okay, so I've got, they diagnosed me with a tumor in my colon. Okay, so that indicates I had some type of indigestible morsel conflict. There was something I couldn't process, I couldn't accept. There was something that I wanted that I couldn't acquire. And my body, it adapted, it made these extra cells in my colon and formed this colon tumor to help me. And so by understanding, again, why this is happening, understanding that your body was adapting to your emotional, your psychobiological experience as an organism, it's like, okay, well, I need to figure out what was the thing? What was the thing that I couldn't accept? What was the thing I couldn't process? What was it that I was struggling to digest mentally and emotionally? You have to figure out what that thing is. And then, there are so many different approaches to resolution, and it's going to be very unique to the individual, because it can't ever be a one size fits all, because every person is so different in how they experience the conflict and then how they're going to resolve it. And so that's why, again, forgiveness, changing your perspective, having a conversation, a practical, Dr. Hamer always said that a practical resolution is always going to be the easiest. And so that's, if your conflict is due to losing your dog passed away and you were very upset about it, and it caused you to have a conflict shock and your body is having a reaction, the most logical and easy resolution would be to get a new dog, to put your dog to rest, to grieve, for the past animal, and to bring this new life into the world, or to get this new dog, and to feel the same way about it you felt about your last dog. Very practical. But sometimes a practical resolution isn't possible, and that's where you really have to access your mind and your imagination and go beyond what you're used to thinking about. And so that's a lot of the work that I do, is helping a person to mold their consciousness and change the way that they feel about something, even things that they're like, I am having a hard time resolving this because I can't think differently about it. It's having tools to think differently about the things that are conflicting you.
Okay, so let's talk about, before we go, October 17th. Tell us a little bit more about your workshop that you're going to do.
Yes, I co-founded an organization with Andy Locke Mears. It's called USA GNM. You can find us at usagnm.com, which is a great place if you are a practitioner, if you're a health coach, if you are a nutritionist, but you're interested in GNM or you're using it in your practice. It's basically an organization for health practitioners of all sorts who use the 5 biological laws. And so we're having a summit. This is our second annual summit. It's on October 17th, and registration is going to be open very soon, but you'll be able to register on usagnm.com. And so on October 17th, we'll dive deeper. We have 10 presenters who will be diving into explaining the 5 biological laws. And so it'll be a great place to expand your awareness and your knowledge of this work.
Okay, and so they can go to usagnm.com to learn more.
Yeah.
That's October 17th. Okay, so that's part of taking back our lives. It's amazing how many people, when they do the emotional work, how everything just falls into place. And when you understand the body, you're not reacting to the body doing what it needs to do. And so I love the fact that we've had this conversation today, Dr. Sal, and I'm hoping that all of you are also, we've got lots of questions, so I hope you have extra time after the classroom. I've got one saying real quick, she wants to know about her knees. If her knees are hurting and she has problems with her knees, tell us what that means.
Okay, so the knees, they are part of the musculoskeletal system. And so depending on what tissue it's coming from, is it the bone? Is it the ligaments? What part of the tissue is affected? It's going to be some type of self-devaluation conflict. And so it'll have something to do with physical performance. Often we have, a knee injury years ago, and then we have it in our head, I have a bad knee. And so your body gets this signal that my knee is not enough. I have a bad knee. There's something wrong with my knees. And so the idea that there's something wrong with my body perpetuates this feeling of brokenness, which perpetuates the conflict of self-devaluation, which causes tissue adaptation, which eventually leads to inflammation once the conflict is resolved. And so we go through these cycles. So when a person has physical pain that's been ongoing for a very long time, we have to look at, when did it first start? What was going on in your life? Did you have an injury? Were you trying to keep up with someone or something? Let's say you were on a hike and you felt like, oh, I'm really out of shape. There's something wrong. I can't keep up with this person. I can't, my legs aren't good. Just even the idea that there's something wrong with my legs. Just a little side note, interestingly, with like cellulite, feeling like, oh, my legs are unattractive is like an aesthetic devaluation that can cause cellulite to form in the body because of the way that you're reacting. So with the knees, I would look at what was going on then, and then how do you think about your knees now? Are you telling your knees you're strong and you're fit and you're able, or do you feel bad about your physical performance and your ability to kind of keep up, to walk as fast as, the people around you, because you have problems with your knees? And so when you can change that story in your mind, you resolve the self-devaluation, you start feeding your mind positive, uplifting thoughts about your strength and your capability and your ability to move around, your body's going to get a new message and it's going to heal. Now, during the healing, there is going to be pain. So like Lillian just said, how you react in those moments to that pain is extremely important. And so when you say, oh, this pain, this swelling, I know I can't do much right now, but my body is healing. And so that's going to be very important for you when you resolve the conflict and go into healing. And you just want to avoid reactivating that sense of physical performance self-devaluation.
Very good. I know that all of you now are going to think about different things that you got going on in your body. We've got lots of questions. We're going to get to your questions. We've got 2 minutes left before we finish the podcast, but I want all of you to stick around because we're going to read every single one of your questions. Hopefully we'll finish them all today. But I am just so grateful to you, Dr. Sell, for sharing this information. Yesterday we started with Dr. Michelle Lamassa Schrader Dawson, and today we're with you. And I'm just really excited that each one of us can play a role in our own healing. So if somebody's tuning in for the first time right now, and they're feeling that they just want a doctor to take care of them, what would be your advice to give them back their power?
It would be that only you can heal you. Only you can heal you. You have your own unique conflicts, your own unique perspective of the world. When you give someone else responsibility for your health, that puts you in a weakened position. And so when you realize that if you want to heal, it's going to come from you. And that gives you that personal responsibility, also that strength and that self-confidence. I loved what you said earlier. It's something I say too. If I created this, I can uncreate it and I can recreate something new in its place. And so giving yourself that boost, somewhere along the way, someone probably tore down your confidence and you didn't feel strong, you didn't feel able, you didn't feel capable, and you're kind of still living under that spell. And to break the spell is to wake up and say, I'm going to take complete responsibility for this. Even if I don't know where it came from, I'm going to say, you know what? This is my body. I made this and I can change this.
I love it. I love it. I love it. For those of you, stick around because we've got the Teacher's Pet Corner conversation. And know that you can find Dr. Melissa Sell at Dr. Melissa Sell, that's SELL.com. And we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Sell in a few seconds. But for now, please know we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Melissa Sell wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever! Best ever. Good job. Okay, hold on tight. Here we go. I'm going to read all your questions now.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, so here we go. Check and see if you were muted too, because Zoom is doing some crazy things where we get muted too. Okay, so we have our first question. It says, Dear Doctor, does the new German medicine entail only diagnostic tools, or does it also provide specific therapeutic treatment component? Which I think is a great question, which we've talked a little bit about.
That is a great question. And so GNM in and of itself, the 5 biological laws, it's a science. It's a natural science of understanding the body. So there are not specific therapeutic tools within GNM. So there's not like a specific therapeutic approach. Basically, people who know the 5 biological laws, different therapists and coaches and consultants help their clients in different ways, utilizing all sorts of different tools. Some people will use EFT, emotional freedom technique, EMDR. So as far as like intervention, some people do, traditional type of talk therapy, consciousness training. I mean, there matrix reimprinting. I know someone who uses is that. So there's no specific therapeutic intervention or protocol. Basically, people who understand the laws work with people in unique ways. And so you'll have to kind of figure out, again, what approach, what therapy, what coach, or even just within yourself, what type of strategy is going to work best for you for resolving conflicts.
Yeah. And, earlier I had mentioned Brain Tap, and Brain Tap is on my website at whenyounneedafriend.com. If you click onto my Shop Now bag, you can get a 15-day trial for free, and you can use your own headsets for it. But it's a headset that has the flashing lights, the far infrared for the ear meridians, isochronic tones, and different beats, and it's just amazing to help balance the brain as well. And so if you guys go to whenyounneedafriend.com, click onto my little shop bag, and go ahead and click and enter your information. 15-day trial for free, and a lot of people find it different. There's lots of different meditations that you can go through while it's in training your brain, because a lot of people might have too much beta, too much alpha, not enough delta. And so if you're not sleeping well enough, everything gets magnified, everything. So let's talk about that. When somebody can't sleep, what is, you had mentioned before that means that they have a conflict that they need to resolve?
Yes. And so that insomnia in and of itself doesn't tell us the content of the conflict. We don't know what conflict they're experiencing, but the fact that you're not able to fall asleep, or if you wake up during the night and you're like awake, that does indicate like your nervous system is letting you know you need to solve this problem there, and it does it when everything's quiet, you can be awake and it's like, figure this out. And so, it doesn't give us specific, we'd have to look more into what the individual is experiencing to figure out what is causing the insomnia. But you'll be able to trace it back. Look at what was happening in your life when it first began.
Very good. Very good. So we have a comment here. I can eat almost anything without side effects whenever I'm exercising. So that means that exercising has a health component and how they perceive it, right?
Well, see, that's very interesting. So if I'm exercising, I can eat everything. So what happens when you're not exercising? Does that mean you have reactions? You have indigestion? Because that's a very kind of interesting pattern. We'd have to look further into what exactly happens. Let's say you're not exercising and you're eating. What reactions are you having? So is it like sinus type of issues? Because that would be like a stink conflict, and that could be, it stinks that I haven't been able to exercise, and so every time you eat, you are maybe feeling bad because you've got this association, calories in, calories out. I'm taking calories in, I didn't burn calories out, and that stinks. And so maybe the food becomes this trigger for like a sinus type of conflict, a stink conflict, because it stinks that I haven't been able to work out. So we'd have to know a little more context, but that's a little bit of an example.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love, like Dr. Michelle yesterday, she was coming up with, like, when I shared before we had a little bit of time, and I shared with Dr. Sell what happened yesterday with Dr. Michelle, where I was talking about when my mom had an issue when she was pregnant with me, and she hadn't seen the sun in so many months, 9 months, she hadn't seen the sun, and she had a nervous breakdown when she was pregnant with me. They were living in London at the time, in England. And what was funny is that Dr. Michelle immediately made like, where do you live? And that I developed asthma, because everybody says that was what caused the asthma to develop in my body. This was what I was told a long time ago. And so Dr. Michelle goes, where do you live? And I said, Florida. And she goes, what's in Florida? I said, allergies. So I'm thinking, that my lung condition is because of allergies. And she goes, no, let's think again. And Dr. Sell said the same thing. Sunlight, because I live in Florida and there's so much sunlight. And so these are like hidden things in front of our eyes that we don't even notice, that we don't even make the connection. And what Dr. Sell is saying, awareness is key. And once you know these connections, you can heal at a much faster rate. And if your body is responding to a crisis and is now going through a healing crisis or whatever it's called, then now you know, this is normal. I'm not going to freak out about this, so that I can set off some other alarm as well. Okay, so Amber is saying, okay, can you explain the German New Medicine interpretation of what's happening when breast cancer metastasizes to the bones, and how to deal with that, and what to expect in healing phase.
Okay, so this is super interesting, and I'm glad that this question came up, because another thing Dr. Hamer discovered that is so counter to what we are told from the conventional medicine perspective. We're told that, cancer forms in the body, and the biggest scary thing about it is that it can leave one part of the body and then spread to other parts of the body. However, there has never been a mechanism. That's just a theory. The theory of metastasis is that, but a cancer cell has never been seen in transit going from one place to another. There are so many different reasons. It's kind of sketchy, the idea that cancer cells could be going from one place to another. We don't screen, like when people donate blood, we don't screen it for, do you have metastasis cancer floating through your body? So, there's a
Good point.
There's a strong implication that this is, science knows, or medicine knows, that this is what's happening, but this is similar to the virus thing. It is a theory. It is an idea that has been perpetuated and repeated so often that it seems like it is an established truth.
Correct.
But in reality, there is not medical scientific evidence to back that up as true.
Really?
And so what Dr. Hamer found with metastasis, it's not that the cancer leaves one place and goes to another portion of the body. It's that the person who experienced the diagnosis, or the other things that were going on in their life surrounding when they developed their breast cancer. So the breast cancer forms either due to a severe separation conflict, something being torn from your breast, some type of severe loss, or a nest worry conflict. And so that will either cause changes within the breast gland for the nest worry, or the breast duct for the separation. So when a person gets diagnosed with cancer, like we said before, it's a shocking trauma. And a person can get the strong sensation that there is something wrong with me. My body is broken, or I'm cursed, or how could my body turn on me? And there's just this intense, deep sensation of brokenness, of wrongness, of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my family. And it's that feeling, it's the self-devaluation that causes, quote, metastasis to the bone. It's not cancer moving from one place to another. It's an additional shocking conflict of deep self-devaluation. So the bones respond to a very severe, profound sense of self-devaluation, whereas like the muscles and the lymphatic system is a more mild, a more moderate intensity of self-devaluation. And so when there's cancer being found in the breast, and then in the lymph nodes, and then in the bones, it's not traveling. There are additional conflicts that are taking place. Now, as far as what to expect, if a person is healing from bone cancer, let's say that you know that there is bone cancer there in your body, and you've resolved the conflict, and you're understanding everything, the healing phase for that type of conflict, it's very painful, because there's swelling, and the periosteum, the coating of the bones, stretches, and so it is a painful process. But that you can expect to be very tired and in a lot of discomfort during the healing phase. But that's where, when you are dealing with an intense healing phase, there are, we do recommend certain natural interventions, things like CBD or cannabis or RSO oil. Certain things can be helpful during the healing phases, so that you don't want to suppress what the body is doing, but there are ways to mitigate and help to ease. More than anything, breathing and meditation can help to modulate any amount of pain, and I think that does give you more power than taking a substance, even a natural substance. But again, when we take something, we think, oh, this is going to save me. It's going to help me feel a little bit better. But when you can embrace something like deep breathing and meditation to moderate your pain, that came from you. And that this pain, it is coming from your body, and feeling in control and able to minimize your pain on your own without taking something is so much more empowering.
Very good. What about low testosterone?
Okay, so that would depend.
Or male sexual organs.
Male sexual organ conflicts, there are a couple of different causes. There are certain, the brain in GNM it's so complex and so interesting. So there are certain conflicts that can affect a certain side of the brain that can cause low testosterone, that can cause the male side of the brain to be in conflict, which can decrease testosterone. You can also have that situation if you are having a conflict with the testicles, something like a loss conflict, which was, what Dr. Hamer experienced. So when you're actively experiencing the loss, there's erosion within the testes, which can decrease the amount of testosterone that your body is producing.
And so how do you take that loss and deal with it for someone? Let's say someone develops low testosterone, they suffer a loss, they know what that loss is. How do you heal that wound so that the body will start to produce the testosterone it needs?
So that's interesting. A lot of times there's, the natural grieving period will, and like in the case of Dr. Hamer, he didn't know GNM when he developed testicular cancer. He didn't know the whole process. He naturally went through a period of grieving. He lost his son. He experienced the tragedy of that loss, and then it resolved naturally with time. And so when you know GNM and you realize, wow, this loss is really affecting me, there is an extent to which just kind of naturally processing and grieving is very important. Like you can't force it. You can't say, oh, I'm going to hurry up and resolve my grief, because there is a very natural rhythm to it. But with awareness, you can dial it down. You can downgrade the intensity of it. You can, really start to look at your beliefs about death, your beliefs about life. And so those are some things that can help you to mitigate the intensity of the loss, just looking at your beliefs about what happens after death. And, is it really the end? Nothing is created or destroyed. Is this person really gone from me forever? So there's a lot of different ways. And again, it's very individual.
And there's lots of different kinds of losses. There's financial losses. There's a loss of a job. There's loss of a boyfriend or a spouse. And through divorce, there's so many different. So loss can be very unique to each individual, so it doesn't have to be as profound. And today, right before the class, I got a text from my daughter saying, please pray for a friend that had suffered a loss due to suicide. And I just wanted to cry for that person. So sometimes, can we feel the loss for somebody else and could trigger something within us?
Yes, there are certain conflicts that you can experience on behalf of another person. So if you can experience a starvation conflict for someone else, you can experience, so if you are a grandparent and so you're not having reproductive trouble, you already have your children, but your daughter or your son is having reproductive troubles, that can trigger a loss conflict, that can trigger things within you. And so, yes, you can experience it on behalf of someone else, especially, if they're close. And if you really, you feel like your child is an extension of you, child-parent connections. And, very interestingly with children, there are some schools of thought that children under 7, they take on the conflicts of their parents, and that they mirror. And so if there's a child and they're experiencing a conflict, you have to look first to yourself. You have to make sure that you're resolving your conflicts, so that your children aren't mirroring you or taking them on for you to try to help you.
Oh, very good. Very good point. A lot of kids, they become the counselors for the parents. When things like that happen, we just need to be aware that we are the adults. Okay, so I've got another question. It says, humans are the only primates with long hair. You said hair loss in some spots on the head is related to separation from loved ones. Is there some kind of relation between hair and being? Is there some kind of relation between hair and being human?
That's a great question. And I don't think I have an answer for that. I think I'd have to do a little more research on that in particular, because that's it's interesting, but I'm not sure if I have an answer for that.
Well, thank you so much for that. Maybe you can go back and answer it if you give it some thought. Any other questions? Any areas of your body that you have that you would like to? I know I don't want to take up too much time, but okay. What about autoimmune disease?
Okay, so this is a very great question. And so From the perspective of the 5 biological laws, autoimmune disease is this idea that for whatever reason, your body turns on itself and attacks its own tissue. So it attacks its own thyroid, it attacks its own, body parts. And so it's a confusing situation. It's like, well, why would my body attack my thyroid? But from the perspective of the 5 biological laws, we're looking at that snapshot, but we're not seeing it in the full context. So we're seeing, okay, the body's doing something, the thyroid's not functioning properly. It looks like the body is attacking the thyroid, when in fact, if we zoomed out and looked at your entire experience, the conflict shock, the tissue adaptation, and now we're seeing something happening in the body, that the body is doing it on purpose. And so what looks like an inflammatory, a bad process, an attacking process that we need to tamp down or take medication or do something to fix, if we understand the biological context, we look at the conflict the person experienced, we'll see, oh, the body is breaking down certain parts of the thyroid because additional thyroid gland tissue was built up. And so that's why this is happening. And so the body does not randomly attack your joints. It doesn't randomly attack your thyroid. If you zoom out wide enough, and if you look at what was happening in your life, you will find a conflict. You will find a deliberate tissue adaptation that's taking place. And you're just seeing one effect, and we're calling it autoimmune, when in fact the body is doing it for a purpose, for a reason. And when you discover that reason and resolve the underlying cause, you can close that open loop and not reactivate these autoimmune type symptoms.
Okay, so let me just take a snapshot there, because what happens is, and I've had Dr. Robert Roundtree or Bob Roundtree come on in the classroom, and I was at a workshop that he was at, and he said, when we have metals that have gone into our organs, and our body is doing the cleanup, and it wants to get rid of that metal in our body, or that foreigner in our body, and it starts attacking or trying to remove it, it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. So if there's an autoimmune condition, you're saying it's our body's response to trying to help us to clear whatever it is. At what point do we look at, not just the emotional component of it, but, is there any metals in the body? Is there any, forgiveness that we need to do? Is there, any chelation treatments that we can do? I mean, is that something that you as a practitioner help somebody kind of chip away? Or is it just the emotional component that makes everything get better?
So this is a very interesting question. And it's one that I still deliberate about, because so obviously, like poisons in the body, toxins in the body, injecting the body with, foreign materials and metals and stuff is not ideal. It's not good. But it is interesting that some people can be injected with those things and have no problem at all whatsoever. The fact that some people don't have problems and other people do have problems, it makes me, again, look at the person, what is going on with them, how are they experiencing their life, like what conflicts do they have active. But yes, poisons can affect the body. Poisons can interrupt normal nervous system function. It can cause crazy things to happen. And so the very interesting thing, as far as like, okay, was it the toxin? Is this the body trying to get rid of a toxin? Or is this a deliberate adaptation to a psychobiological conflict and the body is in this adaptation state? There is a way that you'd be able to tell that, and that would be with a brain scan. So if a person has a brain scan and we, take it to someone who knows how to read brain scans from the GNM perspective, and if there's not an impact in the brain, in the region that's controlling the organ that is exhibiting
Interesting.
symptoms, yeah. So if they're exhibiting symptoms of something, but there's no impact in the brain, we can know definitively this is a toxic response. This is the body's doing its best to clear something out or to detoxify, rather than it being due to deliberate adaptations. Now, as far as who's going to be doing that, I think that a research study needs to be done in the future so that we can know more certainly, was it the toxin or was it the deliberate tissue adaptation?
Interesting, because then you take a pill, because you go to the doctor, and the first thing the doctor's going to do is they're going to write a prescription. And some of those prescriptions have, well, all of them are poison, all of them. One of my favorite was Dr. Gill. I'm trying to remember his last name, but he's a pharmacist. And he showed me, He had a license to dispense poison.
That's crazy.
That's what it's when you become a pharmacist and you have a pharmacy, you get a certification where it says you have a license to dispense poison. So now we're taking these medications that are supposed to help us, and now it's going to create all sorts of medicalized issues that that's why people don't get as well. If they were just to trust in God to give you the wisdom to and honor your body, it would be a totally different thing. I mean, I can just only imagine how healthy we would be. Okay, so one last question. I don't know if we have that. So it's going to be from Victoria. She's usually the person that's sitting in the front row of the classroom. So I'll end with her. She said, would being unable to release weight, and I love how she asks this question, be a conflict?
Ooh, good one. Very, very good. Potentially. So with water retention could be a reason for resistant weight gain. So if you've got weight and you're doing your nutrition and you're exercising, but you don't seem to be able to lose the weight, it could be because you are retaining water due to a conflict. There are a few different conflicts in this family of isolation, feeling abandoned, feeling kicked out, feeling like a refugee, feeling left out, or some type of existence conflict where you're scared for your life. You could be scared for your well-being, scared financially. And so I've actually had experiences myself. It was a couple years ago. I had this kind of financial freak out about something, and I was worried about it for a few days. And what happens is it's called the kidney collecting tubules that they close off. So the body shuts down the kidney collecting tubule, which causes you to urinate less frequently. You hold on to water, and your body, again, it's holding on to it because it's a safety mechanism. And that water can get stored in your fat cells, and you can feel, just kind of, you feel weight gain in certain areas. For me, it was around my midsection. And then when I resolved the conflict, I was like, oh, I fixed the problem. I'm feeling so much better. What will happen is you'll go through the healing phase. You'll be up all night going to the bathroom. It's the urinary phase because your body, you'll also have night sweats is a very good indication that your body is resolving a conflict and that there are bacteria active. The mycobacteria are actively breaking down, because it was built up tissue that blocked off the kidney collecting tubules. Now the mycobacteria breaks it down. You've got night sweats, you're up urinating. And the next day I felt 5 pounds lighter. And so because I resolved this conflict of this financial existence conflict that I was dealing with. So yes, it's very possible that the weight that you are holding on to could be water weight. There are some other conflicts we could look into: adrenal, potentially thyroid, other reasons that you could be holding on to weight. Also going back to that aesthetic self-devaluation. So if you feel unattractive in your body, that also can, cause your body to build additional fat as this protective sort of mechanism.
Okay. Well, I want to encourage you to go back and if there's comments, if you can answer them. I know that there are some questions, and I said that would be the last one. We could be here all day. This is so fascinating. I'm so grateful to all of you who stuck around after the class today, or after the podcast or pod class. And I love how this Teacher's Pets Corner is just getting more and more. But you can ask questions throughout the entire class. So just know that there are several questions that are being asked in the chat. And I am so sorry that we won't be able to get to them because it is 6:30 in Florida. And so I just want to encourage all of you to take out your journals and your soul shovels. I love my little soul shovel, and dig and dig and dig until there's only truth staring back at you. These are all things that, there are pieces of the puzzle. And what I love about recall healing, German new medicine, what I love about, and, being able to love your body and say, how can I honor you today? Because, our body is our temple. We know that our body is our temple, but who resides in our temple? That is so important that you identify that, there's a higher power that is there helping you. Your body is helping you. And if we change our perspective of what is going on in our body, it's amazing how it starts to let go. how it starts to let go. And when you, I love the story that you said, when you started dealing with the conflict, and yesterday I said this, and I'm going to say it again. So if you heard it yesterday, you're going to hear it again. So many of us know we just don't want to, we don't want to deal with it because it's painful. And instead of dealing with it, we carry this 50-pound stack of potatoes just everywhere we go. And it's, I am under the Ohio mentality. Ohio, only handle it once. When you claim it, you see it, you know what's going on, you release it to a higher power, you thank for that experience. And whatever it is that you got to do during that, you will benefit from it. So deal with it. Don't let it just sit there. Just deal with it. Any final words of advice?
Yes, based on what you just said, that's the thing, is we can't prevent unexpected things from happening. That's part of life, is that life comes at you and unexpected things do happen. It is your ability to recognize and be aware, ooh, I'm in conflict. I need to resolve this. I need to handle this. The sooner that you can look at it, address it, and resolve it, that minimizes all symptoms. And so, yes, you're not going to live in a plastic bubble and avoid conflict and, traumatic things happening forever. Things are going to happen to you, but it's your ability to recognize, to have that self-awareness, to acknowledge, to not be afraid, to confront, yourself emotionally, to look at really what's going on there, feel it, deal with it, resolve it, so that your body can go back to homeostasis. Because the longer you hold on to it, the more intense the adaptation, which means the more intense the healing potentially.
That's right. And then we give away our power. We go to the doctor writes a prescription, and all of a sudden you have given up your power. But the reality is, there is the force that created you, gave you the power to create. And so earlier, Dr. Sell said, you can heal you. And I want to also add, and God and you, not just give it up and say, okay, God, you got to heal me and do nothing about it. You're the co-founder of your body. You're the co-facilitator. And so, I always say God and I are an overwhelming majority. We can do anything. And so start changing and reframing. And I'm looking for, so Victoria said, you nailed it. So whatever you said, good job. And whatever, and so she says, please come back to the classroom. Well, also, if you guys want to take a course, and I'm hoping to take this course October 17th, is it one day?
Yes, it's a one-day summit.
Okay, I'm gonna see if we can check that out. Maybe figure something out that I could be there. But the usagnm.com, and GNM is German New Medicine. So if you're wondering if I said an M and an M and an N or an N, USAGNM, and that's October 17th. Thank you so much. And thank you all of you for hanging on to just the end here. But this is just wonderful. Just go back and listen to this and share it and help us grow the classroom, because there's a lot of powers out there that they don't want this information out there, and it is up to you. You don't need to share it on Facebook or YouTube, or you can't share. Yeah, I guess you could share. Just share it on your text, share it on instant message, share it in different ways so that people can come and we can continue to grow together in the classroom. So we will say goodbye for now. And thank you again for the awareness that you've created today. So thank you.